Kyle here from All Media Reviews, here to do Pepe Deluxe Spare Time Machine, the third album. Two quick announcements, but as far as like NBA playoffs, Timberwolves stuff, yeah, I'm gonna have to say my piece. You know, they're down 3-0, but I may relate it to Minnesota sports anyways. Probably tomorrow, and the schedule is likely tomorrow. I probably will make a video regardless of what happens tonight in Game 4. But then I'm going to be making the next anniversary calendar videos probably on Friday, and so which leaves Thursday, if all goes well, to do 1992 albums of the year. So, but anyway, I'm going to do a calendar update too, a new release calendar, and there's some stuff coming out this week. But I don't know. Time is we have to juggle it. Some of the stuff may not show up till next week. We'll see. So anyway, on to Pepe Deluxe, their third record. Came out in June 13th, 2007, Spare Time Machine. And it's weird, it doesn't have like a cheapo sticker on it. I bought some of their records at cheapo. I was still buying CDs at cheapo. That's when I got it. 2012 was it. But so it has, whatever it has, 10 tracks total on this, I believe. So it's not quite as many tracks as the last album, Beatitude. And, you know, the membership, I thought I read that at this point, maybe it was just after this, they established Catskill Records, but Paul Malmstrom had actually joined as an official member. But there's something in this book before I get into the track list. And I've always liked this record, but like Beatitude, it's always sort of been a, I want to love it more than I do album, and because of how much I love the record after this. But you can see the booklet. Very much of a continuation of Beatitude with a lot of the collage of sort of historical, historical, pop culture references, technology, science. This album is the first of its kind recorded on chromium dioxide compact cassettes with microphones operating both in air and underwater, using amplifiers that harness the fire of tubes and the clay of transistors. A tasteful collection of fictional sounds plucked from the highest orbit of the musical Empyrean. But anyway. So, alright, try to get into it. Spare Time Machine, it's, were they Doctor Who fans? Were they a fan of H.G. Wells, of course, The Time Machine novel, and then, made into a film in the, I don't remember what that was, the 1920s, 1930s. A classic, really. A fan of Back to the Future, you name it. It wasn't purely, this isn't like a concept album just about time travel or a time machine, but obviously based on the name. And it came out in 2007, which was a really favorite year of mine for the style of progressive art rock, you could say. Of their style would fall under that. They're exploring, unlike the last, their debut album, there's more psychedelia, neo-psychedelia in this, and more electronic probably even than they used in, well, they're still including the electronics, at least there's enough compared to Beatitude, I don't know. But anyway, the first track is called The Mischief of Cloud 6. Has this beginning that's electronic, and then just before that, the first voiced over says talk about a jumble. But eventually it gets into sort of, you call it the chorus or the main riff on the song. I say yeah, yeah, some female chanting, humming. And then the male vocalist, which again I'm still not fully clear on, the guy who sounds like Frank Sinatra, whether that's Paul Malmstrom, Jane Spectrum, or someone else, the guy they've used, he says, if only 6 was 9, which I think of Jimi Hendrix. I don't know if that goes back further, but if, the 6 and 9 connection. Yeah, it's very dreamy and happy. It's got lines like, you got to get away. See, I wonder again, because that's a Jimi Hendrix verse, like that, you got to get away, man. I don't know, maybe there's something more blatant about the mischief of Cloud 6 with Jimi Hendrix, but The lyrics, gypsy in the meadow, her soft whisper caressing my ear. This is just, I can't understand why a magic man, I think he says. Anyway, so they use some vintagey horns on this. And then the line, I am the black cloud man. Yeah, you work for your you work on your tan. So, you know, it's just rhyming and poetry, and there's a method to the madness. There's a, you know, there's a reason behind the rhymes, but some of it's just how it sounds, I think. They use some hand drums. I don't know if they used too many hand drums until this record, djembe or whatever, which they would use it more on the 2 records that have come since. But then a little surf guitar, which was prominent in the next record too. So I mean, this is almost like a track you could have somewhat been used on Queen of the Wave. I'm not sure. And then this track is one of, not necessarily every track on this album, but most tracks. Toward the end, there's this fuzzy, distorted guitar. It's very jazzy, but it's a solo. So it's not really long. But okay, so second track, and that track's like 4:14. The second track is longer. It's 6 minutes and 25 seconds. The track Miss Wilhelma and Her Hat. And I should be holding this up right here. Beginning kind of starts out like kind of Middle Eastern, but you know, eventually using some vocal effects, and then, you know, I think of in Queen of the Wave they used the Stalag pipe organ, but they waited a long time to use that. So there's some kind of pipe organ which sounds like a pipe organ in this, but I don't know if it's the Stalag one. It's the one that they, you know, had to use, but they waited all those years to use. But it's a pipe organ. It's kind of that fat, almost froggy sound. But then they have some banjo and some fat synths. The snare drums sound really like organic, very jazzy. And then eventually a driving rhythm comes in, but it almost sounds like it's being led by a mellotron. I'm not sure if it is, but, and some organ. The line in your garden is repeated. Nice vocal harmonies come in with, I think, male and female, or at least female. Very 60s-ish. I mean, just, again, so I mean, I think they channel the 60s influence a lot on Beatitude, but I think they did more on this, and I think they did even more probably on the next record. And then they have a bluesy guitar solo with some wah-wah pedal work around 4:45, and more fuzz guitar in the rhythm, and you know, it's like a fuzz guitar fest, this record, with many of the tracks. So that's the second track, Miss Wilhelma and Her Hat. So the third track is, I think they did a video for it as a single. I talked about it in the video a few years ago when I talked about Spare Time Machine. Go for Blue. They start talking about colors. Yellow, yellow, yellow. We agree. It's got this really upbeat, very infectious rhythm to it. And then he repeats the male singer, all the colors, all the colors, all the colors. Eventually says, go for blue. And he says that on two or three occasions. So that's basically the chorus. Very much featured, again, the 60s organ sound. Not the Stalag fat froggy one, but it's just like a Hammond or something like that. The solo that comes after that, maybe the first, you know, Go for Blue verse is really good. It stands out. A lot of call and response, you know, repeated vocal chants, more fuzz blues rock guitar, you know. Then there's this organ and snare part that's really uplifting the last 45 seconds. I mean, Go for Blue is definitely one of the better tracks they've ever done, and you know, I mean, it's a top 3 or 4 track on this record for me for sure. So it's only 3 minutes and 2 seconds. Anyway, I haven't watched the video in a long time. I should go back and revisit it. So the fourth track is a track called The Last of the Great Explorers. This is almost 7 minutes long. Very cool track, though. What sounds like they're using like maybe xylophone and or vibes. The line, well, I wake up in the morning, trouble is my name. And it's repeated. And then eventually, I wake up in the morning, trouble is my game. If I caught that correctly. Again, the singer sounds like Sinatra. Is it Malmstrom? I'm not sure. But there's up to 3 vocalists at one point. So it's him, a female singer, and then one of the other singers. I don't know if it's... I'd have to look at the credits and look on Discogs or something. But there's a line, if you don't watch out, the place is everywhere. So The Last of the Great Explorer. This is an adventure kind of piece, narrative, sort of take you on a journey kind of thing. kind of a, you know, a microcosm of, you know, a time machine. You're taking a trip somewhere, you're going somewhere. Some soulful chantings featured, and then a lot more xylophone rhythms. Like, xylophone totally stands out on this track. It builds midway through with lots of layers. It just starts to build layer and track upon track. I don't know how many tracks they use on this. It could have been 15. At one point, though, it gets really, like, with what sounds, again, is it vibes or xylophone, because I've always never been able to fully distinguish them that well. But it gets percussive and then really proggy, and eventually leads to this cool guitar riff. It reminds me a lot of Brian Scary's Purple Rocket, which came out a few years before. Came out the year after, actually. But there's a part in that the sort of odd times, I don't know what it's in. It might be in 7 or something like that. It's kind of using chromatics. Lots of panning and vocal echoing effects, some of the instrumental parts, some trippy vocals then it comes to, and then some piano with some whispers over it. And it's very trippy, this build with what sounds like both cello and accordion. Yeah, this is a pretty significant track, and one that I haven't listened to this album extensive amounts of time. I probably should appreciate more, and I can say I do now more. Last of the Grey Explorers. So the next track is quite a diversion from that sort of multi-part layered track. It's Pussycat Rock, which really, and I think they did a video for this one. They did 3 videos maybe, because I think a lot of the approach of the guys in Pepe Deluxe is they want to transcend just sound. They want to add color, visuals, kind of imaginative, you know, aesthetics with the soundscapes. And so what better platform and format to do that with video, although of course it takes a lot of time and money to do that. I always thought that actually they should get, that would be a great idea if they could get Michel Gondry to direct one of their videos. Grant, their videos are so kind of out there. I don't know if he would be a little tame for them, but anyway. So getting back to Pussycat Rock, 2 minutes and 21 seconds only. It has a punk element, a punk energy, but I think in the video they just kind of manipulate a cat. But the lyrics are about, it's kind of on the nose. It's about, a lot of lyrics are about a cat, but just the repeated rocka, 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 rocka. Then you scratch, then you bite, then you scratch, and then you claw, and you run away. It's just a fun track. It's not, again, it's only 2 minutes, a little over 2 minutes. It's very distorted, a lot of more fuzz guitar. Then there's an organ solo toward the end. So yeah, that's track 5. So track 6, Apple Thief. 5 minutes and 16 seconds. Starts out a little slower, so you can compare it to even Last of the Grey Explorers. This starts out at a different kind of tempo. A little walking bass, with a female voiceover. It's kind of a mood track. Some pitch bending, very atmospheric. Again, more of the Sinatra-like vocals, and the line, I'm an apple thief, is repeated frequently on it. And then I think it was like middle of the track, maybe a little past that, you get some fat synths and acoustic that's really add to it. Really it's a weird combination. Fat synthesizers and like acoustic guitar, but it works. And it becomes very much of like a soundtrack kind of thing toward the end. Again with cello. I'm not sure what they all used. Cello, violin, French horn. It sounds kind of like French horn or trumpet maybe. But yeah, again, it's not my favorite song on the album, but it definitely adds to sort of the flow and the kind of gives another kind of flavor to this record and the concept or whatever they were going for here. So the 7th track is titled "Lucky the Blind" versus "Vacuum Cleaning Monster." Not title again. 5:55, so just under 6 minutes. Female vocals. It has kind of a Beach Boys. This is the first half of it. Kind of a Beach Boys harmony kind of thing with the female vocals. Then there's a little narrative. Now the show is over. Talking about a show, though it's free admission. It's like some sort of performance, like at a circus maybe. I'm not sure. Your contribution is nothing to say. Such a fine day to sing a song. So, yeah, and then you have great harmonies from an organ solo. That's what I wrote down at least. Very happy and energetic, very sunshiny. So then about a little past halfway through it, you get this acoustic, almost Western sounding section with a shaker. The The third part, you know, the third section of this, you could say, features female vocals and fast acoustic guitar, some rhythms and organ. It's a great section. So the line, it's another side for sucking black hole. So I don't know if it's like some performance that they got sucked into a black hole, or the black hole's sucking them in, so they're in space, something like that. So, but then there's a fuzzy guitar solo. It might be like through a tube amp. There's so much sort of studio trickery they use. I mean, their experience with Supersonic and that sort of DJ culture, I think, led to their, you know, exploration into manipulating sounds in the studio with amplifiers and different instruments. I would love to see video footage of the making of it, although it probably wouldn't be short. So, okay, number 8 is one of the other like tracks I've always known this album for, and there's a video for it. It's called Captain Carter's Fathoms, which the Captain Carter, and I talked about this a couple of years ago in that video I did on them, I believe is a reference to whatever, John Carter of Mars, you know, that novel. I forget who the author was again, but then the film adaptation, which ended up being somewhat of a disappointment. In the it was like 2010, 2011. You know, I think I've only seen parts of it. Might be kind of gaining a little bit of a cult following. John Carter of Mars was written fictional. Let's see, soldier. Let's see here. Edgar Rice Burroughs, some veteran of. Well, that's it actually. If I'm I got some sirens second here. I don't know if it's catching it on. Antonio Sabata Jr. It's like the Virginia soldier who acts as the protagonist of the Barsoom stories. The Barsoom stories, rather. No, I mean, John Carter. Here it is. Yeah, so they called the movie John Carter. That's what it is. Directed by Andrew Stanton. I know it had Bryan Cranston among some others, but anyway, I don't know if I look it up before I upload the video. I'll try to add more details on the behind the story, John Carter of Mars. But anyway, this is probably the proggiest track on here. I mean, you could say the last of the Great Explorers. This is 7 minutes and 9 seconds, and let's see here. I mean, there's a lot of details about it. It starts out with some panning guitar and some more distorted fuzz guitar, and then some organ which sounds distorted. So there's a lot of distorted manipulation with both guitar and organ or keyboard. Then it gets really spacey. And you get acoustics with acoustic guitar and what sounds like harpsichord and flute, which ends up being a feature on a lot of this track, which is, again, over 7 minutes long. Very thematic. The harpsichord totally works. And then you get a narrative, which is the thing I always think of. Again, I believe I mentioned, maybe I didn't, there's a video also that was for this piece, for this track. My name is Captain Carter, I'm 32 and I live on Mars. It goes on and talks about a bunch of other things. Good old action-packed. Over the narrative, you're hearing about John Carter. There's the flute and the harpsichord really work. I mean, it creates this great atmosphere. Driving rhythm, you know, and then it gets syncopated between the harpsichord, the drums, the synths, the fat synths. It gets really trippy. And at some point, we also hear some clarinet coming in. Keeps on getting bigger and more layered. Kind of Middle Eastern toward the second half, maybe like the latter couple minutes. There's one line, "Don't carry no six-shooter." I don't know, because again, I always think of like the Martian Chronicles, like adventure stories of people that, you know, went into space and went to Mars, and they're like soldiers, like I mentioned, so they carry some kind of weaponry, but he says he doesn't carry a six-shooter, so if he's on Mars, he needs something more lethal, more threatening, more viable. He has the line, "I want to love a tutor, I'm a blue," something, I missed that part, but yeah, and then you get what sounds like guns at the very end, like space guns, almost something out of Star Wars. I kind of thought of Star Wars or Battlestar Galactica, something in science fiction with, you know, lasers versus just gunpowder. So so then the 9th and 10th tracks are the last two tracks. They're basically just a suite. It's Forgotten Nights Prelude, which is just 44 seconds. It's an intro with synths basically, and leading to the final track, Forgotten Nights. with a K. It has some cool vocal effects and echoes, but it actually is pretty catchy. The line "Gonna be okay, all right." Some men, they are here to kill. Some here to kill, here to die. Live a lie, better stand back. That's repeated like maybe 2 or 3 times. But then there's a really fun horn section which is used throughout the rest of this track. The line, "Who eats them? Who eats them? Just play with fire." I wasn't quite following the actual lyrics with that part. But if only the latest remembered your name, you're not above. So, what exactly occurs, or what this last track is supposed to be telling in this sort of adventure concept story on Spare Time Machine with Forgotten Nights, I'm not sure. But if it's a time machine adventure, maybe that's what happens at the end. He's, they're here to, they're traveling around. They're here. They're saying some men are here. Some they are here to kill, here to die. It's like they're soldiers, but maybe time travelers. Obviously, if they're going to continue to travel in time, are not going to die. So that's my take on Spare Time Machine from Pepe Deluxé. What's your take on it? Someone left a comment on the last record about the last review about using samples, clips, or fair use, etc. There's a couple reasons why at this point I wouldn't be doing that. Number one, I don't have the time. Number two, that may be all well and good to be able to use it for fair use. I just don't really know if it's worth this point. Could try another YouTube account, but I'd love to do that. But again, it's more of a matter of means. I'll leave a link. I left a link for the other record, the other 2, I think, to Spotify. I think it's also streamable on YouTube. But maybe down the road, maybe that's a goal. The point that I have more time to actually do these videos. But yeah, I like this album a lot, Spare Time Machine. But I still kind of the feeling that between this and Beatitude, well, I prefer them over Super Sound. They've never fully, I've never engrossed. They're very good records. I would say that this record is a decent 4-star record. Whereas I'd say Beatitude is just teetering on 4 stars. It's maybe not quite. It's never fully, hit me over the head. Although, listening to it today, I can say that I have a little more appreciation for songs like The Last Great Explorers, especially, and Apple Thief, and the first track, The Mischief of Cloud 6. So I think it's slightly less is more, even though they did so much layering. This album definitely is a natural progression from Beatitude, and for the next record, Queen of the Wave, you can totally see where they were going, and this is where I think they fully embrace the sort of vintage instrumentation and really trying to just create some kind of sound collage of textures and tones and instrumentation in art. Whereas with Beatitude, I thought they kind of were going halfway there. It's obvious, even though they spent this came out in 2007, so it was 4 years after Beatitude. So they spent 4 years between each record, and after this it was 5 years. But you can totally see now the gap between Queen of the Wave and the record after that was much more. But I don't know. I think this album, if it came out in vinyl, I would buy it in a heartbeat. I think this album is a very cool, very good way to sort of see where they would go. And again, I think it is slightly less is more, because I felt like at points on the last 2 records there was more meandering. There isn't as much meandering on this record. It's a great length, and I would say they pretty much did the same thing on the next record. Now, anyway, let's get into but I'll be going over, of course, Queen of the Wave next week, and then Phantom Cabinet Volume 1 the week after that, and of course the big Comix Sonix, the 6th album, the week after that, when it comes out. Again, thank you for watching. I'll link the stream. Again, I got the albums calendar coming up. The anniversaries coming up on Friday for June, which is a decent list, not amazing. I hopefully will be able to squeeze in 1992. If I can't, at a minimum, I think I'll try to do as an alternative a new release calendar update, because there's a few things that have been announced and that have come out, and what's coming out this week, of course. But thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.